Good evening, you're watching Just the News. Straight up to our top story today. The Supreme Court has refused to postpone the NEET PG 2022 examination. Now, the exam is scheduled to be conducted, as was said before, which is on the 21st of May. The Apex Court has now said that any further extension would have serious consequences on patient care and treatment and would lead to chaos and uncertainty for over 2 lakh doctors who have registered for the examination. Now, the top court was hearing a petition filed by a group of doctors who requested the court to postpone the NEET PG 2022 examination by 2 months, as they had failed to register by the last date of the 25th of March owing to the delayed counselling schedule for the NEET PG 2021 admissions, with the state counselling ending on the 12th of May. Now, in a letter to the Health Minister, the IMA had also made a specific request and highlighted that the gap between NEET PG exam and counselling was very little to prepare for, and hence the exam should be postponed, but the Supreme Court has now rejected that plea. Moving on now, in Jammu and Kashmir, massive protests are being held by Kashmiri Pandits in various parts of Jammu and Kashmir after Rahul Bhatt, a revenue department official, was shot dead by suspected militants on Thursday. Now, protests are being held since yesterday. According to NDTV, police fired tear gas shells and resorted to bait and charge when a group of protesters tried to proceed towards Srinagar airport. Now, at several areas, members of the community left their transit camps, blocked roads and raised slogans against the central government. At several places, candlelight marches were also held. On Twitter, PDP President Mehbooba Mufti has claimed now that she has been placed under house arrest to stop her from visiting Budgam to express solidarity with the protesting Kashmiri Pandits. Now, Rahul Bhatt is the third Kashmiri Pandit to have been killed in the last 6 months. 2 others have been injured as well. Moving on to the state of Karnataka. Now, Karnataka on Wednesday issued a high alert along the districts bordering Kerala after it reported the outbreak of tomato fever or tomato flu. Now, the district health officers of the border districts have been directed to step up surveillance measures and maintain constant vigil on outpatient department services in both the private and public health institutions. Now, according to officials, over 80 kids have been diagnosed with this fever in Kerala's Kollam. Now, in the meantime, Tamil Nadu has also ramped up surveillance at its borders. Tomato flu is a viral disease which causes red flashes, skin irritation and dehydration. Now, tomato flu has some symptoms similar to that of chikungunya, such as high fever, body ache, joint swelling, fatigue. However, infected children also experience rashes and skin irritation, further causing blisters on parts of the body. Moving on from the story now on to the city of Mumbai. According to a report by Bar and Bench, a Mumbai court has allowed Maharashtra Cabinet Minister Nawab Malik to avail treatment at a private hospital but refused to grant him a medical bail. Now, the judge also pulled up ED officials for not taking Malik to a doctor who had been treating his condition since the beginning. Now, the NCP leader was arrested by the ED on the 23rd of February in connection with an alleged money laundering case involving underworld don Dawood Ibrahim. Moving on from the story now, Delhi Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia has said that he has written to Union Home Minister Amit Shah and urged him to stop the demolition drive in Delhi. Now, he alleged that the Municipal Corporation of Delhi, which is governed by the BJP, is planning to raise 63 lakh homes in the national capital. He also added that notices have been sent to them. Now, he said that this will leave 70% of the city's population homeless. Now, in the last couple of weeks, we've seen the Municipal Corporation of Delhi carrying out what it calls as an anti-encroachment drive in several parts of the city. We saw many across the city of Delhi, like Shaheen Bagh, Jahangir Puri, among other places as well. Meanwhile, while speaking at the second global COVID-19 summit PM Modi has now said that the WHO must be, and I quote, reformed and strengthened to build a more resilient global health security architecture, end quote. Now, he also added that as a responsible member of the global community, India is ready to play a key role in these efforts. Now, this comes amid the backdrop of the centre rejecting the methodology of WHO's counting of COVID deaths after the WHO released a report saying that India's COVID death is 10 times more than the official figures. On to business news right now. After reports of retail inflation touching record high numbers, with April's number at 7.79% when compared to March, which was at 6.95%. The Finance Ministry, in the monthly economic review report for April, has in fact now said that the inflation has affected the rich more than the poor. Now, in its report that was released yesterday, it said, and I quote, evidence on consumption patterns further suggests that inflation in India has a lesser impact on low-income strata than on high-income groups, end quote. Now, the statement is contradictory to what RBI governor had said when repo rate was hiked. At that time, RBI governor had said that sustained high inflation has, and I quote, pronounced adverse effects on the poorer segments of the population by eroding their purchasing power, end quote. Moving on to environment news, an update on the heat wave situation in India. According to PTI, Rajasthan's Barmer yesterday recorded a maximum temperature of 48.1 degrees Celsius as parts of the state continue to reel in heat wave. Now, this is according to the IMD, which has said that other places recorded temperatures over 47 degrees Celsius as well. Now, the IMD has earlier predicted that a fresh heat wave would happen in the northwest and the central India between the 12th of May to the 16th of May. Moving on now to science and technology news. The Indian Air Force has said that India successfully fired the extended range variant of the BrahMos missile from a Sukhoi 30 fighter aircraft on Thursday. Now, the weapon achieved a direct hit on the designated target in the Bay of Bengal. Now, these air-to-ground BrahMos missiles can carry out pinpoint strikes on high-value military targets, underground nuclear bunkers, command and control centers, and land on aircraft carriers and other warships on the high seas as well. Moving on now to global news, starting off with UAE. UAE President Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al-Nahyan has passed away at the age of 73 after suffering from illness over several years. The ministry has announced 40 days of mourning with flags at half-mast from Friday and work suspended in the public and private sector for the first 3 days. Meanwhile, an update on what's going on in Sri Lanka. Despite the president now appointing a new prime minister, Ranil Wickremesinghe has been appointed as the prime minister of Sri Lanka. Anti-government protesters have vowed to continue their anti-government campaign, demanding the president to step down as soon as possible. Now, newly sworn-in Prime Minister of Sri Lanka has said, and this is after visiting a temple in Colombo, said, and I quote, "We are facing a crisis, we have to get out of it," end quote. Now, he also spoke on Indian economic assistance and referred to it, in fact, and said that he wants a closer relationship with India and wants to thank the Prime Minister of India as well. India has committed more than $3 billion to debt-ridden Sri Lanka in loans, credit lines, and credit swaps since January this year. Meanwhile, it's day 79 of Ukraine crisis. Now, India and Pakistan were among the 12 countries which abstained from voting on a UN Human Rights Council resolution seeking to address the deteriorating situation in Ukraine. There were 33 votes in favor. India has also abstained earlier in March from voting in the Council on the resolution that established the Commission of Inquiry as well. Meanwhile, European Union has announced that it would provide a further $520 million worth of military support to Ukraine. Now, the latest aid package would increase EU's funds for Ukraine's military support as well. One piece of good news before we wrap things up here on this bulletin. This comes in from Spain. Several media reports have now said that Spain is planning to introduce medical leave for women who suffer from severe period pain. Now, the reform is part of a set of proposals around reproductive health and was first reported by Spanish radio station Cadena SER on Wednesday. Now, a draft bill says that women could have 3 days of leave a month, extended to 5 in some circumstances. Now, the BBC has reported that politicians have warned that the draft, which has been leaked to Spanish media outlets, was still being worked on. If passed, however, it would be the first such legal entitlement in Europe. That brings us to the end of this bulletin. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.